Hello and welcome to I Can't Believe It's Not the Mouse, the podcast all about animation not made by the mouse. I'm your host, Octaviano Macias, and today I'll be talking about Avatar Aang, The Last Airbender. I'm just kidding. I am not talking about the leaked Avatar animated movie. Much as I kind of want to, I'll be honest. Out of respect for the animators, I've decided not to talk about this until it is officially out. Now, I know some of you are probably going to point out, like, hey, you've done leaked material before, and yes, I've done that. And personally, I still kind of feel the same way that I did back then. It's okay to watch it. I mean, it sucks for the animators, and I do think they deserve respect and whatnot. That being said, since a lot of this stuff is stuff that is just going straight to streaming anyways, watching it on the official source will be beneficial. But it's one of those things where it's like, look, it's out there, people are going to be watching it, and especially with this one, there's no way to avoid it. I've, scrolling through social media for the last few days, I've seen nothing but clips or people just uploading the whole movie. There's just no way to avoid it. Yeah, I could just not watch it, and, I respect those of you who can, but I can't really blame anyone for deciding, okay, well, you know what, I'm seeing it right there, I might as well just get it over with. And to be clear, when it comes to this stuff, I do think that more people should, at the very least, watch it the second it gets the official release. And if you watched it while it was leaked, watch it again while it's officially released. That's what I ended up doing when it came to both of the SpongeBob movies. So, and Clone High, that was another one. That's one that I actually did a full episode on. But again, I'm trying to be like, okay, out of respect, I will be, from here on out, just avoiding doing full episodes on leaked material, unless if it's something that's never coming out, like the Popeye movie. But if it's something that will be getting an official date, then yeah, just avoid it until it actually comes out. That way, out of respect, it doesn't feel like I'm taking advantage of them or anything like that. And, they deserve your support. But again, I can't pretend that I wouldn't watch something that's available right in front of me. Like, unless I have to put in actual work into it, then yeah, sure. Of course, I'm not going to bother with that. But if it's something that it's constantly coming up on my feed, people are sharing it, it's like, look, even if I don't watch it, a million other people are probably watching it, and that doesn't mean that I'm not going to support the material. I will. Yeah, and then in this case, it's something that I don't even like. I don't even like. I don't like the Avatar cartoon. Never really was a big fan. There are aspects of it that I do like, which is why I wanted to watch this, just because I was like, okay, well, maybe they finally figured something out. Maybe it's something that catches my interest, because you never know. But also, I was not really too surprised going into it that I wasn't gonna like it. Ended up hating it a lot more than I expected, but I will still give it the support that it deserves. So yeah, watch Avatar Aang, The Last Airbender once it comes out on Paramount Plus if you are interested in it. If you're not interested in it, I mean, maybe just don't bother watching it at all. Personally, again, not a big fan, so didn't like the movie. Disappointing, but not really. So anyways, today's real episode is on the Japanese animation feature ChaO. Before we get started, I just want to say, if you're listening to this on YouTube, go ahead and give it a like, subscribe to the channel, feel free to comment, and ring the bell for notifications. Also, if you're on Spotify or just any other podcast site, follow this show on those platforms. So, we're all familiar with The Little Mermaid. They've done so many different adaptations of it, whether you were introduced to the original Hans Christian Andersen story, or if you were introduced to it through Disney, which most of us were, don't lie, we know what The Little Mermaid is. It's the story of a young teenage girl who is a mermaid, falls in love with a man, and goes on land to try to woo this man. The original story is very tragic. The Disney version, not so much. And again, there's been various versions of this thing. I mean, it's had parodies upon parodies, and it's had, let's say, reimaginings to it. This isn't even the first time an anime adaptation of The Little Mermaid has happened. Now, granted, Not that I'm saying that the next movie I'm talking about is the first time it happened, because it surely isn't. But this reminded me a lot of Hayao Miyazaki's Ponyo. Ponyo is another take on the Little Mermaid story, where in this case it's less about love and it's a younger girl who basically does meet a boy and goes on land. But again, it's more like a little two kids having a friendship and the little girl just wanting to explore the land. It's the less sexual, if you want to say that, version of the story. This one kind of reminded me of that, not just because it's Japanese, but because of the approach to it. Once again, you get a girl, this time around adult age, or is adult, who is in love with a man. She goes on land, and from there, it's pretty much these two having to deal with their relationship. ChaO does a lot of things new with the material. For this one, the whole idea of mermaids and humans, you know, at the start of it, they already tell you that they've figured out a way to coexist. There's no secrecy between the two. They know that mermaids exist, and of course, mermaids don't try to hide themselves from humans. Much like those other two movies that I've mentioned, the father of the Little Mermaid in this case, the ChaO character herself, her father, much like the other two, are rulers of the sea. And we essentially get to see how this character fell in love with the man from the man's perspective. So yeah, it definitely has its own spin on the Little Mermaid tale. Whereas, of course, if just to give it some form of context, the Little Mermaid, the Disney version, you have your character of Ariel, falls in love with a prince, makes a deal with a sea witch to go on land, and the sea witch is trying to screw her over, but of course, in the end, love conquers all. The end. Ponyo, you have the kid who could go on land, but because she goes on land, it screws up like the whole ocean, and the world is in complete chaos because of all the stuff that Ponyo is doing. But she is unintentionally doing it, and as a result, the father wants to bring her back to the ocean so that she could, stop all of this madness. It's kind of weird, honestly. It's of the three, I would say it's the weakest adaptation of those, but it does have its own unique stuff that's kind of neat. The animation, of course, is neat on that one, and then we get to ChaO, which is very nice in the animation department. It's very unique. It's obviously it's very much an anime, but you can see like just the way they design the characters is very fun. Like you'll have some people who look like normal people, and then you got people who are like really big, really small. You got people who have like the weirdest features, and it's just like it's really interesting to watch. I love the way that the princess is designed. Basically, when you see her on land, she just appears as a regular fish, a big regular fish. So that kind of becomes an issue with the main character, where he's like, I don't know how I can love a person like this, but she claims that I promised that I would always be with her, and she's convinced that we're true love, true lovers, whatever. Okay, so in this case, the Little Mermaid has essentially gotten this guy who is unaware of her existence and convinced them that they are meant to be, and this is only further pushed on the guy by all the people around him, because they're like, look, you're getting married to the princess of the sea. This is a big deal because it's going to bring you a lot of wealth. It's going to bring you a lot of attention. And in the case of his job, his boss is now like, okay, yeah, I'm now interested in promoting you. I'm going to treat you like my brother, and I'm going to basically fund your idea. Because basically one of his big things is that he wants to create safer boats for the mermaids, which is part of the reason why a bunch of the mermaid people are also in support of it, because they're like, hey, look, this guy actually wants our safety, whereas a bunch of these other people were not concerned about mermaid safety. So it's very much a cute love story of like, okay, here's someone who's madly in love with a guy, and then the guy just kind of having to learn to love her out of his own gain. Of course, as the movie goes along, we realize like, okay, he does truly love her for more than what he's getting out of her. He does find the reasons that she thinks that he loves her, and finally comes to accept that he does truly love her. It's cute, it's fun, it's neat. there's really not a whole lot that I can argue about it. It is just a very cute rendition of the Little Mermaid. For anime fans, it'll probably remind you a little bit of Ponyo, just because of like some of the stuff with the way they handled like the aside from the animation, just some of the ways they handled the character of ChaO and her father. There's kind of a neat thing in here where they're like, look, you can actually see the true form of the princess whenever she's in water. And as the father eventually reveals, like, hey, look, you've noticed that sometimes I look more human like than I do as a fish, and then sometimes I'm more fish like. That's because when it comes to merfolk, depending on who we trust, we will reveal ourselves to in a more human form, and if we don't trust you so much, we'll appear like fish. Pretty simple, understandable, weird, but it's neat. Now, obviously, I've already talked about how it's kind of like the Little Mermaid, and I do want to just fully lay it out, just as much as I can for this, just to give you an idea. So, again, common things throughout this. You got a mermaid, of course. You got your Ariel, your Ponyo, your ChaO. They all got red on them. Now, granted, only two of them are redheads. Ponyo and Ariel are the redheads, whereas ChaO, her fish form is red, and her when you see her in her more human form, she still has red on her what would you call it, her fin or whatever. But when it comes to her human version, she has blue here, so that is different. They're all enthusiastic about the human world. They, you got Ariel, who of course, has the whole thing with the dingle hopper. That's a fork, and then Ponyo is just really excited about the humans, and ChaO, also shares in that actually those little things to try to cheer up the main character by like presenting like fireworks but doing them inside by mistake because she isn't aware that fireworks would be dangerous to do inside, trying to create like robots because there's there's a guy who does robotics in this movie, and that's the whole thing. If you've noticed, I'm not really trying to spoil too much of this movie, and that's partially because it's not widely available as of this recording. It is still playing in some theaters here in the US, but I know that by the time this hits, it's probably not going to be playing anywhere. Hopefully it gets a streaming release soon, but this is something where I'm like, okay, this is something where I think you should watch when you get the chance on your own experience. But yeah, you got those similarities. You also got the similarities between how their fathers are all pretty much disapproving over the human relationship for different reasons. You got King Triton and the Little Mermaid, who just basically does not like humans because humans are bad. And Ponyo, they try to add a little more complexity to it, but essentially it's like, of course, doesn't want Ponyo to be corrupted or basically to go become too invested in the land to basically that she starts destroying the world because of it. And then ChaO, the father, is essentially just like, look, I like the fact that my daughter is happy, but he's much more of the typical father in comparison to all three of them, where it's like, look, you on the other hand, I don't care about you. I don't know how my daughter is into you. You're kind of a loser. Fuck you. But of course, he is supportive of the daughter and wants to, protect her. So, it does eventually result with the father going a bit overboard, but it's understandable because it's like, hey, it's his daughter, and of course, the main characters. I do like how there's different takes on this. Like, for the most part, they're all guys who are nice to the lead. You got your Prince Eric, who's really nice to Ariel. I gotta be honest, it's been a while since I've seen Ponyo, so I can't even remember their names. But the little boy, also really likes Ponyo, and he's like a little boy, with his pet, and then Fran, and then in ChaO you have Stefan, who is generally a nice guy, but he's also kind of like, look, I don't know why this mermaid likes me, but I'm kind of in this uncomfortable position where I don't really want to break her heart, and even more so, my boss, my family, everyone around me is telling me that I shouldn't break her heart because there's a lot to be gained here. So in that regard, I think he's the best one, of course, and it kind of makes sense because it's this is a story that's primarily from his perspective. The movie is essentially being told directly from him, so you can argue that some of it may not be entirely accurate to what happened in the real story, but then again, it's all fiction. Who gives a shit? And of course, it's just all about how humans and mermaid interact. I mean, of course, again, this is ChaO is the only one where it actually goes all in on the idea of like, okay, they're in a society that coexists with each other. They are aware of each other's existence, and this is supposed to be like a great big step forward in terms of doing more things to show that they have a solidarity with each other. Which I will admit, in that regard, it is kind of a shallow movie, just because it's not like it's really going all that deep into the politics about different races having to work together and all that stuff. It is very much just a simple story about, hey, girl meets boy, boy meets girl, girl is madly in love with boy, and boy has to kind of deal with that, with the stuff about their races being just essentially background noise. Like, I'm not going to say that it doesn't factor in any kind of way, but I will say that it just doesn't amount to much, it's not like they're going into like a whole like, okay, let's make the mermaid a metaphor for minorities and basically go into a whole detail. Not that you can't take it that way, but it doesn't do anything like it's not like Zootopia, where it's like you can clearly tell like, okay, this is what they're aiming to do, and this is a very clear message. Like it is acknowledging, okay, different people, different existences, and how we should work together, but it never feels like it's beating you over the head over it, which is fine. I don't think that the story needed to go all that deep into it. I know some people might prefer that it goes deeper into it, and that I respect because there are good stories that go deeper into this stuff. But for this one, it's like, look, at the end of the day, the primary thing about it is that it is a love story about a guy who is unaware of why this girl is in love with him, and essentially learning to love that girl back. Which, admittedly, this being a shallow movie, is not too surprising, all things considered, just because The Little Mermaid. Not to say that The Little Mermaid itself is not, well, yeah, you know what, I'll say it. The Little Mermaid is a pretty shallow story, and it's not necessarily bad. There's a lot of good shallow stories. I mean, this is a short story from centuries ago. Not that there isn't anything deeper with it. I mean, of course, with the original version, it is a lot more tragic with the princess dying. But whether the princess dies or lives, and she clearly lives in this version and all the other versions I've been talking about, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the whole thing is really about the human connection, about just this girl and a guy. And that's perfectly fine. Not that it doesn't add anything to it. Of course, it's adding a bunch of, commentary on celebrity stuff and commentary on the way people react to like social, like pretty much like the hierarchies of like hey, look, this guy was a total loser because he had nothing going for him, but then the second he gets a girlfriend with powerful influence, then it becomes this whole thing where it's like, hey, now everyone wants to respect him, now everyone wants to hear his ideas. So there's a lot of commentary in that regard, but again, it's not like it's gonna be anything where it's like, okay, it's got a lot of ideas going on. Like, it's not, it's not about the race, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's one of those things where it's like, I see a lot of movies, especially these fantasy, movies that are aimed at younger audiences. This one, I would say, is definitely aimed more at a teenage audience. But, like, when it comes to a lot of them, like whether you got your Zootopias, Trolls, or whatever, they often fumble a lot of their race metaphors the second they start going too far into it, because it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, the second you start adding these metaphors to fictional creatures, there's a higher and higher chance that you're gonna make some mistake, whether it's in making jokes about stereotypes, whether it's making insensitive comments about certain issues, and translating that into those creatures. So there is an issue that arises from that. I respect it when they try it, and I do think that more people should, if they feel like they can. but I'm not gonna crucify anyone for deciding like, okay, we'll leave it at whatever is the simplest thing we can do. It's fair. I can't blame them, and I can't blame anyone for that, and it's perfectly understandable. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. You know, this is a very cute movie. The animation is very neat. It's obviously very anime-like, but like I said before, it does a lot of weird stuff with it where some people look normal, some people look big, some people look small. They have weird proportions, weird designs, and the movie has fun with having like all these weird designs. It also has those weird designs with the fish people. Like I said, with the princess, she mostly appears like as a giant, walking fish rather than their, human form. And because of that, I'm like, okay, well, the human form is very pretty, without a doubt. There's a lot of charm and cuteness to her fish form, to the point where it's like, I kind of understand why the guy doesn't want to be with her at this point, because it's like, we're two different beings, and aside from the fact that he doesn't really know her, it is also just like, this looks weird to me. This is not something that I'm normally attracted to. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but this girl's just so adorable in this form. I feel like if I saw this in real life, I'd probably just want to keep her around just because she was that adorable. Which, again, is kind of messed up, because I guess it feels like I'm saying that she should be a pet. But no, she very much has her own, humanity to her. I don't know. It's a cute movie. Watch it if you get the chance. Hopefully this hits streaming soon. When it does, I do think that anyone who's into anime should watch it. And if you're into animations about cute romances, just a really beautiful movie to watch. Honestly, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I kind of hate that a lot of anime fans only watch anime that's either based on a show that they like or made by Studio Ghibli, and even then more specifically Miyazaki. We got other people who make good animations from Japan. This is a good example of that. Watch it. See you next time. Thanks for stopping by. Go ahead and follow this channel. Subscribe, like, and comment. Ring the bell for notifications. Go ahead and also follow my podcast. And give some love to my Patreon account while you're at it. It's www.patreon.com/sidecams. Again, thanks for stopping by, and I hope you come back for more in the future.